The walk from Pandeleimona Monastery to Eristos, around the northwest corner of Tilos, is a pilgrimage into a temple of the wild. It is not particularly long in distance, about 10 kilometres, but the terrain makes for slow progress, and it is a committing route once the central section has been reached. The route sticks to a mid-height level on the slopes of Mount Prophetess Ilias, weaving a line around the northwest, southwest and southeast flanks, and crossing over a series of ridges as it progresses. This Temple of the Wild is entered by a path running alongside the perimeter wall of Pandeleimona. Beyond the monastery, the stony path threads its way upwards through the thorn scrub, ascending into the embrace of the wild rocky ridges of Prophetess Ilias mountain. The ridges around the mountain amphitheatre above Pandeleimona cascade steeply in a rim of broken cliffs, below which a steeply angled apron slides away down to the sea. The trail takes a rising traverse across this apron before contouring below the foot of the cliffs, and then climbs up through a break in the slope to a col. In the early morning it is cool on these west-facing slopes, whilst the heat of the sun is kept at bay by the mountain. This col marks the end of the first stage of our wilderness passage. Beyond here, all views of the last sanctuary of Pandeleimona are lost, and we are handed over to the mercy of the mountain. The sun climbs higher as the day ages. Light begins to spread from the east, extending the reach of the sun into the shadows. Rocky towers and pinnacles begin to shine in the sun, turning on one by one. It is like the lighting of candles in the church of Pandeleimona. Start early at first light if you want to experience this magical but short-lived part of the day from a high vantage point at the first col. A short distance west from the col, the ridge we are crossing over falls as a sheer cliff down to the lower apron, which slides away steeply. The walk continues across the top of this line of cliffs, skirting the western flanks of Prophetess Ilias mountain. In the spring, the slopes are a blaze of yellow gorse. The blend of yellow spring flowers, the fresh greenery, and the redness of the stony soil makes a wonderful palette of colour. The gorse grows in compact, dome-shaped bushes. It is a remarkable example of how order is created out of the complexity and apparent chaos of nature. I suspect it is the shape which results from a balance between the rate at which the plant can pump moisture to the furthest tips of its branches and the rate of evaporation from its leaves. The dome shape is the result of some secret radius embedded in these processes of nature. The route keeps to the left of the line of cliffs which buttress the western slopes of the mountain, staying to the more level ground which breaks the slope before it plummets over the cliffs. A series of shallow cols are crossed as the trail turns southwards towards the top of the ravine which runs down to the Bay of Liminari. By now, even with a start at first light, the reach of the sun has extended onto the western side of the mountain, and as the trail has turned southwards, we are now out in the full heat of the morning sun. Regular stops to drink water are essential to combat the risk of dehydration. Fortunately though, nature has provided a supply for the traveller. One of Tilos's many natural springs is located out halfway down the ravine. Beyond the spring, the trail turns eastwards, skirting around the lower slopes of another ridge, which falls in a southerly direction. This leads round into another large mountain amphitheatre, which is dominated by the summit crags of Prophetess Ilias. There is some evidence along this section of the trail of an ancient man-made path. The positioning of large stones is evidence of human engineering rather than nature's more chaotic efforts, and in one or two places, short sections of some ancient steps are encountered. Apart from the fragmented remains of an old engineered pathway, the only other surviving relic of man's activity in this part of Tilos is the shell of the Chapel of Panagia, standing silent and alone amidst the scrub in the baking heat of the valley above Liminaria. Here, the head, shoulders and arms of the mountain hold us in a magnificent wild embrace. It seizes us from the comforts of our engineered and manufactured world and takes us into a world without us. It is both frightening and humbling, but also exciting and inspiring. Emotions that all mankind needs to share before we plunge our world into chaos and ourselves to the verge of extinction. The wilderness speaks to us of the need not to reject the fruits of our science and technology, but to rediscover the idea of the sacred within our endeavours of discovery and creativity. Only the goats worship here now, leaving their excrement and their bones as an offering inside the empty chapel. In all of our pilgrimages into the wilderness of Tilos, we should light a candle in the chapel of Panagia, to bring back light into her dark and derelict interior, and to create a symbol of the sacred as the essential light opposed to darkness and dereliction in all our human endeavours. A recent rockfall has spewed debris down the slopes at the foot of the ridge running down from Prophetess Ilias' summit. Nature does not stand still, and even the mighty mountains must succumb to her awesome capacity for continual destruction and creation, processes which are as inseparably intertwined as the double helix of DNA. After leaving Panagia, the trail continues in a southeasterly direction, climbing up from the valley where the chapel stands. We are now traversing around the main south ridge, which extends the reach of the mountain from its highest summit out to Cape Andreas. Below, down to the right, is the secluded bay of Liminaria, where the most remote beaches on Tilos have been created by the relentless pounding of the waves against the island's far west coast. At first, the trail hugs the base of a wall of rocky outcrops before moving on to more open slopes. Before the final col is reached and the trail turns away from the wilderness, a substantial rock platform provides a suitable location to stop and gaze out over Liminaria and to contemplate the rugged mountain terrain we have crossed during this pilgrimage into the wild northwest of Tilos. Umbrellas, stashed amongst the rocks nearby, are erected to provide a temporary respite from the late morning sun, whilst the group enjoys these moments of joyous reflection and relaxation. The final col is reached after a long but fairly gradual reascent from the chapel of Panagia. This col is the gateway which leads us out of Tilos the Wild and back into inhabited Tilos, where man's influence returns to the landscape. Before leaving, it is impossible not to look back one more time into the wilderness and make a promise to return again. For no matter how familiar this pilgrimage may become with each visit, its impact upon the soul grows stronger, and its imprint upon the mind clearer and more difficult to forget. How could anyone who has been here not eagerly await the next opportunity to return? The trail leads down across the southeast slopes of the Paleocastral ridge of the mountain and back to the Bay of Eristos. And so, as the heat of the day intensifies, we go down, each with our own thoughts, to the gentle oasis of Eristos.